And if you look in the back of the book, my business card is in the back. You all get a free copy of my first book, which came out earlier this year, and I'll tell you a little bit about that here in a minute. But it was my first effort. It's an Amazon bestseller. My second book came out earlier this week, and it also hit the bestseller list yesterday. So, pretty excited about that. I want to talk to you a little bit about something that happened to me back earlier. Well, it happened just about this time last year. And when I talk about it, I call it Gate 3, Terminal D. Last year, I took my first trip ever. I'm 55 years old, and my first trip to New York City. How many people have ever been to New York City? Gosh. You've never been to New York City? I don't feel so bad. Okay, we got two that haven't been to New York City, so I don't feel quite so bad. There was an event in New York City that a friend of mine was speaking at, and I got talked into going to New York. Never really wanted to go to New York City, didn't feel like I was really missing much. So I got talked into doing it, going up to see him. He's a good friend of mine. He was speaking, so I decided to go. And I was going to do it right this time. You know, I'm always late for things that are always last minute. So I was going to do this right. I was going to make sure that I got there early so I could check into my hotel, make it to the venue on time. Just very easy, laid back, not going to have to hurry. So I booked my flight. I didn't have my wife do it, which was my first mistake. I did it myself. Planned on being there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The meeting started at 5, so I was going to have 3 hours, or 2 hours, 3 hours to get to my hotel and get to the venue with no problem. Now, like I say, I'd never been to New York, so I wanted to do this the right way, but I wanted also to do it the cheap way. So I booked the cheapest flight that I could find. It was a non-refundable flight. It was going to get me to New York at 2 o'clock. I didn't want to rely on New York City transportation that much, so I picked a hotel, the Luxury Holiday Inn Express in Midtown Manhattan. Anybody ever stayed at the Luxury Midtown or the Luxury Holiday Inn Express? It's a great place to meet high-end people if you want to network. But the nice thing about it was 1 block away from the venue, so I wouldn't have to get transportation, and it was the cheapest place around Midtown, so it was great. I was going to save a bunch of money on transportation and the hotel. Unfortunately, the guy oversold the venue and had to move it 2 miles away from my hotel, so now I was going to have ground transportation. But anyway, I got ready to check in for my flight the night before I left, and something was dreadfully wrong. I found that my flight did not land in New York City at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It landed in Philadelphia at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I had a 19-hour layover. So I was going to land in New York City at 4 o'clock in the afternoon on the day after my event. Now, who would schedule a 19-hour layover in Philadelphia of all places? I don't even know why they would do something like that. But anyway, I called the discount flight company that I had set my flight up with, and they of course informed me that this was a non-transferable, non-refundable flight, so they couldn't do anything for me. Suggested I call American Airlines. So I called American, and they basically confirmed the fact that there was nothing they could do for me. So I asked, how am I going to get to New York? What's it going to cost? How many know that booking a flight 24 hours before you're supposed to leave is not the cheapest thing in the world? Okay, so I booked my flight. Because I got to go to New York. I had already booked my hotel and paid $700 for a ticket to this event. So I bought my ticket one way because I said, can I use the return flight of this super cheap ticket that I bought to get back? Sure. So I was going to use the return flight part of my ticket. So I fly to New York. Well, I got to New York at 4 o'clock instead of 2 o'clock. And how hard is it at LaGuardia Airport to find a taxi? Well, let me tell you, if you come out at the wrong place, it's very hard to find a taxi at LaGuardia Airport. So I'm looking for the taxi stand, can't find the taxi stand. I call the hotel to confirm my reservation. The hotel says they don't have my reservation. Of course, I never take the confirmation information with me when I travel.
So I couldn't find that. Had to call IHG, get my confirmation information, call the hotel number that they gave me. It was the same hotel that I called the first time. And of course, when I gave them my confirmation number, they of course had my reservation. Found the taxi stand. I'm racing up to the taxi stand. This young man comes out and says, "Are you looking for a taxi?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I've got you covered." He hails this car over. Really nice little SUV. I get in. I didn't even hesitate. I just jumped in the car, take off. We're headed across the bridge over into Manhattan. And I've got this really pretty little Oriental girl driving this really nice crossover. And I said, this is not exactly what I'd expected from a New York City taxi cab. She said, "Oh, this is not a taxi." "It's not?" She said, "No, this is a private car service." I'm like, "Oh, good." So it cost me quite a bit of money to get out of that car. But I made it to the venue 15 minutes into my friend's 30-minute presentation. Went back to confirm after taking 2 hours to get back to my hotel, I went to confirm my flight. Well, they had canceled my return ticket because I had no-showed my first half. So how many know that it's not cheap to buy a ticket 24 hours before you come from New York back to Nashville? It's not. So I planned on a day in the city. That was gone. Get to LaGuardia Airport. My flight's delayed by an hour. So I went to go to the restroom, buy my wife a little doodad, get a drink before my flight. Come back, terminal's empty. Jetway's closed. Everything's gone. I'm standing there in the window of the gate, looking at the pilot, and he's looking back at me going. So I went to the gate next door, and I was like, "You see that jet?" I said, "Yeah, I'm supposed to be on." So they managed. At least they didn't charge me for another ticket, but they said, "We've got a connecting flight out of Charlotte." I said, "I don't care if it connects out of Alaska. Just get me out of New York." So get me out of New York. They sent me to gate D, Terminal 3. I'm sitting there frustrated and aggravated out of all the things that had happened to me. But I wasn't mad at the airport. I wasn't mad at the hotel. I wasn't mad at the car service. I was mad at me. And here's why. And this is the whole point of this story, is that I tried to get by on the cheap. I didn't invest in myself. For what I spent doing things cheap, I calculated it out. I could have flown first class both ways. I could have stayed in a 4-star hotel. I could have had first class ground service to take me where I wanted to go, anywhere I wanted to go. But the thing is, I did everything on the cheap. And what I found, and I knew this from my past life as a defense contractor, when I could do anything I wanted, however I wanted to do, whenever I wanted to do it. Anytime you do things on the cheap, you wind up paying more. There's no such thing as good cheap. But what had happened is I had become comfortably, as Pink Floyd's song says, I had become comfortably numb in my situation. And I allowed myself to convince myself that doing things on the cheap was the better. And there's no good in comfortably numb. And you can become comfortably numb in whatever situation you're in, whether you're at the bottom or the top, you can become comfortable. And there's no safety in comfortable. There's no prosper in comfortable. So don't allow yourself to be comfortably numb. Don't do things on the cheap. If you want to be successful, do the best of the best in anything that you do. It's just like these books that I gave you today. This is the best business card that you can have. If you've never written a book, you should. It's cheaper to buy $9 business cards from, what's that company that does cheap business cards?
Vistaprint.
Vistaprint, yes. You can buy $9 business cards that has Vistaprint printed on the back of them. That's the cheapest way you can do. These business cards cost me about $3 a piece, but it's a much better business card than a Vistaprint card. And plus you get useful information out of them as well. But don't do things on the cheap. Do things on the best. Do the best of the best. Lori could have these things at a Waffle House type place, but she has them at one of the best places, and that's for a reason. So anyway, I'm James Springer. Buy my book.